It's time now for the Todd Leonard Show. Leave those negative stories behind as we focus on the positive and hear from those who give back and help others. Let's start your day with some inspirational stories. Now, here's your host, Todd Leonard.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We have an incredible show once again. You know, last week was quite a show. We had Pastor Gidron come on, and I was blown away by his humanity. And once again, we're going to be talking with the wonderful person, Teresa Connolly, of feeding the hungry through Nourish, New Jersey. She's been doing so much for over 23 years, and it's quite an honor to have her here today. Good morning. Are you with us today, Miss Connolly?
I am. Good morning, Todd.
Good morning.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. I know it's been a while to get you on the show, and it means so much that you're able to, join us this morning. So, each week, Terry, we bring really wonderful people on who just give back, make the world better, and really just, in my opinion, embody the best that we have to offer. So I wanted to go over with you today a little bit about your background and, in essence, who you are. And you've been giving back for all these years, over 23 years, which candidly is quite a commitment. So if you can you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your journey in life and how you ended up on the Todd Leonard Show this morning?
Sure. So my name is Teresa Connolly. I am the Executive Director of nourish.NJ, which is located in Morristown, New Jersey. We were formerly the Community Soup Kitchen and Outreach Center, which is how a lot of people would probably know us. And we changed our name back in October to really better reflect all the services that we offer. So I have been there, like you said, 23 years. I have a master's in social work and was fortunate to really kind of stumble upon the organization just a couple weeks out of graduate school. And I have been there ever since and just loving the work that I do more and more every year, and just can't imagine my life without this organization and the people we serve as part of it.
Yeah, now, you had changed names. How long ago did the name change get instituted?
So we changed it in October. We actually launched it. We have a hunger walk in October where we have about 1,200 people who come out and support the organization through a walkathon. And that was the launch of our new brand and the name change from Community Soup Kitchen to nourish.NJ.
Right. Was there, obviously Nourish.NJ is so much more encompassing. Was there just, you wanted to have a broader appeal, or what was, just the feelings behind that?
Yeah, so for so many years, we had been so much more than a food provider. Food is still at the heart of everything that we do and at the center of everything that we do. But probably about 15 years ago, we really decided that, it's kind of the difference between, here's a meal and we'll see you again tomorrow. And, what are the underlying things that are causing you to need to come to us every day for food? So let's solve those problems together. And that led to lots of outreach work, lots of social services, the addition of, in addition to the food programs, working on housing programs with people. So people who were experiencing homelessness, helping them to move into housing and helping them stay in that housing. Working on employment with people because, being unemployed or underemployed was really one of the biggest issues we were hearing from our guests that they wanted help with. And then also working on health issues and mental health issues with people. So Community Soup Kitchen didn't really reflect all of those things that we could offer to the community. So changing the name, and then also realizing that there's a stigma attached to the concept of a soup kitchen, and that it was actually creating a barrier and making it harder for clients to come to us for services. So simply by switching the name, I think it made us more accessible to people asking for help.
Right. So that was something that was just interesting because I do understand when people conjure up the idea of soup kitchen, candidly, you think it's people in there, maybe in an overcoat, having shaved in 4 or 5 days and just really so down and out, or a woman, like panhandling. And I certainly understand why there might have been a change of the name. One of the really wonderful things about what you guys have been doing for all these years, Terry, and why I wanted to have you on the show was to kind of blow up the myths. There's so many people that I think don't understand what it's really like for folks who come in and are so ably served by you and your wonderful team. And that's the reason why I want to also have you on, because I think we certainly need to talk about feeding the hungry in so many ways, but also just to blow up those misconceptions. People are just, I don't think really understand how people could end up just needing a hand up. If you may permit, Terry, months ago, we had the Interfaith Food Pantry on Carolyn Lake, Nathan Umbriac, and Margaret MacBone, actual recipient of the wonderful works. And it was really incredible to really hear their story. And when I heard you were going to be on, I'm like, well, this is a great time like ever, talk about feeding the hungry. So what are your thoughts about that and how people really have I think, in my opinion, the wrong idea?
Yeah, I think there are so many misconceptions, and, I experienced them also. The first time that I came to what was then the Community Soup Kitchen, I came out as an outreach worker, and the picture that was in my head was that I was going to a soup kitchen, and it would be, lots of, older people and, people who were homeless, visibly homeless, down and out, probably, a lot of people just kind of shuffling around and not really making eye contact. And when I walked in the door the first time, my experience was so different. It was, and this, again, was 23 years ago, but, it was people of all ages, and the atmosphere in the organization is so uplifting and so empowering. And most of the people that we serve, especially now since our housing programs have been so successful, are not homeless. So it's people who are working one job, two jobs, full-time. And living in New Jersey is very expensive. So struggling to make ends meet. You're working full-time or you're working two full-time jobs at minimum wage, and it just isn't enough to make ends meet. So struggling to put food on the table for your family. And then lots of senior citizens who are living on fixed incomes. So people who, it's the choice between medications for that month and having food. And then we do have a small population of people experiencing homelessness. But even homelessness, what I've learned over the years is that it's a situation that people find themselves in. It is not something that defines who a person is. And people are still people, and they have the full experience of life, and this is a situation that they are currently in. And it's so easy for all of us, myself included, to kind of put it in a box that, those are the homeless. And what I've learned over the years is they're people just like me and you. They are just in a tough situation, and, sometimes just the reach out and the helping hand and the let's talk about why this is happening and help figure out the next steps for you is the life-changing work. And the thing that makes the difference is that we care, and we're willing to be there through all of it, no matter what.
Yeah, no question. Once again, that's what's so wonderful about Nourish New Jersey is you're lending a hand up, but also you're giving hope. I mentioned Pastor Gidron, which was a great honor, when he was on last week. And he was talking about, the misconceptions of the folks that are homeless. It could be anyone. It could be people just, as you said, in the situation, they need a hand up. They just really need some help to get back on the right track. Sometimes people are in a rough patch, and we don't know how that happens. Could happen to anyone. And what also Pastor Gidron talked about is black, it's white, it could be anyone. And everybody really, I don't think, understands fully the gravity of the situation. And just people need, a loving hand, some encouragement. So in terms of the myths, because I think, Terry, that is important. So we talked about it could be anybody. It could be someone 2 jobs, 3 jobs, and just, the economic world we live in are really tough, especially during COVID-19. And you've been so involved for 23 years. So initially, who would think? 23 years later, your life's mission now is to help those really in need. What a beautiful thing. It's really, one thing I love about the show is people like you, you make it your life's passion. Why, Terry? if you may. I know it's early in the morning, but I got to ask, why? What made it why you gravitated to helping those in need?
I think it was always in me. When I decided to go to school for social work, I kind of stumbled upon it in college. I took a class as an elective. I think it was, something about social welfare, and just felt like I had suddenly found my place. And, I was kind of unsure before that what I wanted to do. I was thinking pre-med. I was thinking pre-law. And literally, just took an elective, probably because it fit in my schedule, and just fell in love once I saw that perspective. I had gone to a very small all-girls school and left there and went to Rutgers University. So it kind of opened this whole new world for me of diversity and, different ways of thinking about things, and, kind of started on that path of social work. Got my master's degree and knew that what I was really interested in was working in the community with people who were the most disadvantaged. And as I was finishing up my internship with the Mental Health Association for my master's degree, I started to realize I would need to find a job, so I better get out there in the community and start figuring out what organizations were out there. And again, just came into what was then the Community Soup Kitchen, and it was one of those moments that I think are very, very rare in life, where I walked through the door and there was just this moment where I knew this is the place that I need to be in some capacity, as a volunteer, as, a staff person, whatever it is. This is some place that I need to be. And I was told by the person I was with, I have to go meet with some clients, so just grab a tray, get some lunch, have a seat. And I was gripped with panic that, oh my goodness, again, back to these myths and back to this stigma, all of those people who were serving food to people here are going to think that I'm someone who's homeless and someone who can't afford to buy their own food. But, I was in a room of 100 people. I had never been there before. I had no idea what I was doing. So I did what she told me, and I took a tray, and I went through the line, and I got a tray full of food. And, I wanted to say to every single person that I saw, I'm a social worker. I'm a social worker. I'm not someone who needs to be here. And they were so loving and kind and smiling. And then at the end of the line, I was faced with, where do I sit in this room of 100 people that I don't know? And I felt so outside of the whole situation. And somebody kind of looked up from one of the tables and pointed to the chair across from him. So I went and I sat, and we just started talking. And in that experience, I realized there was no difference between me and those other 100 people who were in that room. That, that whole feeling I had of having to explain myself wasn't something I needed to do in this place, and that nobody else needed to do that in this place. And I knew I had to be here. And then by serendipity, 2 weeks later, the executive director, so I started volunteering, and 2 weeks later, the executive director was retiring, and he said, do you want to interview for the position? And I interviewed, and 23 years later, here I still am, just loving the atmosphere, the culture, and most importantly, the people that we serve every day.
Well, listen, Terry, there's no question, in terms of just how you've been discussing that initial, really, the beauty of life. It is mysterious, how things kind of happen in life, serendipity, and just you're at the right place at the right time, or you get that feeling, you need to be there. And I think everybody, as you go through life, you realize those moments where you find that purpose, that meaning behind what we're doing on this planet, because Lord knows it's quite a mysterious and interesting journey. You're up, you're down, you're sideways, but it's part of just living, But one of the things that you were able to find over 23 years ago is helping and being there to help the community. One of the things, too, is, you're a Morris County resident, Terry?
I I actually live in Somerset County now, so I was Morris County when I started there.
All right, well, Morris County, Somerset County, it's all kind of the same. What I was building to is very affluent communities. I mean, we're talking about very, very wealthy folks, but nonetheless, even in very wealthy areas, they're stolen. Once again, one of the myths, as I'm researching for the show, to shine a big, bright spotlight on this is this could be anywhere. There are people amongst us, friends, neighbors, and they don't have enough food on the table. And some people are too embarrassed to say, listen, I need a hand up. I need help, you know. And that's something why I really want to do these shows, is to really let everybody know if you're struggling or if you have a friend that's struggling. It's okay to say, listen, I need a hand up. That's totally fine, because we are really in this together. So you start over 23 years ago, and the mission's evolved over time, and I always like uplifting stories. You know, everybody wakes up that tunes into the show, and I'm so proud of being able to hopefully reach out into the community and lift people up. I think that's really important, especially in these trying times. And, you know, tell us about some of the things you witnessed firsthand, you know, that you really see the benefits for the folks that need a hand up. And I keep on saying that over and over again, Terry, because there's nothing wrong when you need help. That's what people are out there for, like you and your wonderful volunteers, so ably serving the community. Give us some examples of things you've seen that, you know, are heartwarming.
Absolutely. So, I mean, so many stories over 23 years with just so many wonderful people. So one of the people that comes to mind was a mom who, and this, again, kind of goes back to the reason why we changed the name of the organization, but, you know, a mom who very well could have been me. She lived in Morris County in Mount Olive Township, and, excuse me, had 2 kids, was married. She was the typical soccer mom that, you know, we would all think of, where, you know, her kids were in school. She was doing sports after school. She had not worked since her children were born, and her husband was really the breadwinner of the family, and he unexpectedly passed away. And she found herself trying to raise, you know, 2 children, one of which had a learning disability and the other who had diabetes. And she found herself trying to maintain this house, having not worked in, you know, 15 years, and had a child who, you know, one of the first things people do when they experience food insecurity is, you know, one of the pieces that you can adjust in your budget is how much you spend at the grocery store. So you begin to buy things that are less healthy. So you begin to buy more packaged food, more canned goods, things like that. Because, I mean, let's face it, the fresh groceries are the most expensive piece. So she didn't have the option of doing that because she had a daughter with diabetes who could not eat those foods without ending up in the hospital. So she found us and walked through the door the first time and instantly burst into tears, because she felt like this was a low point in her life, that I never thought I would need to come to a soup kitchen, but I have to do what I have to do to help my family and my children. So we immediately grabbed her, pulled her aside, sat down, started talking, learned her story. And over the course of the time that we worked with her, she began coming for our free farmers markets, which we were offering at that time probably 3 times a week. And that's all fresh fruit and vegetables that are completely free to anybody who comes. So she started coming for the free farmers markets. And then as we were working with her, you know, it was, you need to go out and get a job now, even though you haven't worked. So through our employment program, we were able to help her get a job, which really lifted her mood, you know, really helped, you know, her family get back on the right track. And then, you know, the discussion about this big house that you had when your husband was here is not something you can maintain. So helping them move to a different home in the same community that was more affordable on the salary that she was making, and then being able to get in there and work with her family. So, like, there was a camp that was specifically for children with diabetes that her daughter really wanted to go to, but she couldn't afford to send her. So we were able to do some fundraising so that we could send her to that camp so that she could have that experience. The son wanted to go back to playing sports, but she couldn't afford the fees. So all of that work, at the end of the time, she still comes for free farmers markets, but at the end of that time, we were able to go through this journey with her of taking them from a really low place and helping them to redefine what their life looked like, and get them to a place where they were self-sufficient and, kind of back on the right path again. But, to be able to go through those journeys with people is such an honor.
You said a statement which is kind of fascinating to me, okay? This concept of food insecurity, and it's an interesting term, Terry. But what are you really saying when you say food insecurity? I mean, let's break that down. What is that really saying to folks?
So food insecurity is when you don't know where your next meal will be coming from, or when you don't have the ability to provide yourself or your family with the food that you need. So it could mean a couple different things. It could mean literally, I don't know what I'm going to feed my children for dinner tonight or myself for dinner tonight. And we're seeing, an incredible amount of food insecurity in college students. That's one of the populations that we're really seeing it in, and that it's growing quickly. So literally not knowing what will I be able to eat for my next meal. And then kind of the expanded definition of food insecurity that a lot of people are talking about lately is, surviving on ramen noodles and canned vegetables and macaroni and cheese, which are the foods that many people can afford who are on food stamps or living on limited incomes, leads to so many health issues and so many additional costs to society, in terms of financial dollars, but then also just in terms of societal impacts on childhood obesity and senior citizens with chronic health conditions and, adults with obesity and chronic health conditions. So it's either, literally I don't know where my food is coming from, or I don't have access to the types of food that I need to live a healthy life.
One of the things, too, Terry, because I hopefully the listeners understand I try to be as prepared as possible. I'm researching, a little further, because when I had the Interfaith Food Pantry, and that was an eye-opener, and I'm delving more into this very important subject, because it's really not spoken about. It's almost like a dirty secret about people not having enough food and this food insecurity, and they don't have how they're going to have their next meal, or they're having, obviously, meals that are certainly not nutritious. And it's in the millions, 30, 40 million folks here in our great country, United States of America. There's so many millions of people with what you're just talking about. And I'm like, well, how could this be? We got to lift up. We got to help these folks and people like you and your team, of wonderful volunteers. So one of the things, too, that I love about this show, Terry, I got to tell you, my own little secret is I get in contact with wonderful people. And you've really seen firsthand the community lending a hand up, right, and coming together. I mean, you're there. You got a wonderful staff. You got so many volunteers. Tell us about that experience. 23 years of seeing the best of people, helping others, lending a hand up, making the world better. What's that like when you go to work?
It's an incredible experience every day, and it's one of the things that I love about my job. And at the end of the day, I'm one of the fortunate people who can look back at my day, and no matter what went wrong, there were so many wonderful people who were part of that day. We have over 3,000 volunteers over the course of a year, and these are people who are choosing. They're not getting paid. There is no reason why they need to be doing this, but they feel passionate about helping their communities and helping people, and they are just absolutely wonderful people. And they come out and they lend a hand and they work so hard, and it becomes a part of their life. It becomes a part of who they see themselves in the world, and it becomes a part of how they choose to spend their time over and over and over. Some of our volunteers have been with us for 35 years, which is an incredible commitment to anything, much less something that you're not even getting paid to do. And then to see the relationships that form between volunteers, but also between volunteers and our guests, is one of my favorite things to watch, where volunteers notice the people who come through the line or the people who come for a free farmers market, and they chat with them and they get to know. And then if they don't see someone for a while, they'll pull one of us aside and they'll say, I haven't seen Joe in a while. Is he okay? And just that connection that's being made between people who it would be so easy for us to think that they're so different, many of our volunteers are affluent. Morris County is an affluent community. And, so many people would think that we're so different, that this man who is struggling with food insecurity or this woman who is currently homeless and this person who has this very affluent life would never make a connection. They do, and that humanity shines through. And they are looking out for each other, and they're looking for each other when they walk in the room. And they check in on each other. They'll ask, I haven't seen him. Is he okay? What's going on? Or the guests will say, I haven't seen, Susie in a while. She always used to be here to serve breakfast on Tuesday mornings. Is everything okay with her? So just witnessing those connections that people make, and that the goodness on both sides just shines. People do it because they love it, and people do it because they care. And you see it in every interaction that happens in the organization. It's amazing to watch and an honor to be a part of every day.
Right. It sounds like an incredible bunch of folks. Talk about true volunteerism. So, Terry, for the folks that are listening right now and hopefully feeling inspired and they want to help and they want to get involved and join those 3,000 volunteers annually for Nourish, New Jersey, how do they reach out to your wonderful organization?
So our website is nourish.NJ.org, and there is a lot of information on there. So things are different, of course, in the age of COVID-19 and the way that we're able to use volunteers and kind of the roles and the jobs that people can do. But it is all on our website at nourish.NJ.org, and then we do have someone on staff who, with 3,000 volunteers, we need someone on staff who helps to organize all of that. And her name is Heidi Griffey, and her email is heidi@nourish.NJ.org. And she loves to, chat with people and email back and forth with people about all the different ways that they can get involved, lend a hand, and make a difference.
Amen to everyone on your amazing team. So, Terry, we're going to take a short break, be back in 30 seconds, and continue our important conversation about feeding the hungry.
The Todd Leonard Show is sponsored by the Leonard Foundation, whose mission is to support the children and families who are battling pediatric cancer and those in need of food and assistance, women's shelters, and other important social services in the community. They also proudly support those fighting pancreatic cancer. They feel it's vitally important to help those in need in our amazing community when they need us the most. Please join them in extending a helping hand and go to leonardcharity.org and donate now. Together, we can touch many lives.
So we're back here with Terry Connolly, Nourish, New Jersey. What an important, wonderful organization. So Terry, I wanted to go into something, that I was thinking about, in preparing for the show, and we had a chance to, email a little bit about one of your wonderful, causes, and one of the things that you said. I love mantras, slogans, mottos. I don't know, I just like it. I gravitate to it. But there's so much substance to them, believe it or not, even though there may be one or two words or a statement. Sometimes it just really rings true. And one of the things that you said when we were going back and forth is you build a community every day. And I just love that, because I love the idea of community, and we're all in this together. Doesn't matter where you are in this great country of ours. It's really one big community, and we obviously need to pull together more than ever. Talk to us about you building a community every day.
So it's one of my favorite things about the work that we do is, it's so easy for all of us in the world, and especially, in light of COVID-19, for us to kind of live in our own little bubbles and to, so between social media and texting and, to live in our own little bubbles and to not really connect in a real, authentic, meaningful way with the people around us. And one of the ways that we are able to foster that sense of community is just by bringing together people of such diverse backgrounds. So it's bringing in the volunteers, it's bringing in the guests, and facilitating relationships between, all of those people. And we have such a broad reach. So we work with 25 local churches and synagogues who are actually the driving force behind the work that we do. We work with, over the course of the year, about 75 corporations who bring out teams of volunteers from their workplace to volunteer with us. And then we have a youth council where we bring in middle schoolers from local schools to come out and volunteer and do projects with us. And then we have, thousands of people who just are looking for a way to connect to their community and find us on our website or hear about us from a friend and come out and begin to work with us. And then that connection with the people that we serve, who, again, I just have to say again, are no different, is what we learn from all the rest of us. And then all the other service providers in the county. So we work with about 24 other nonprofits in the county who come out and provide services directly in our dining room to our guests. So when you kind of put all of those diverse perspectives and all of those different people in one space together, it's amazing to watch the connections that happen where, somebody who, we had an experience once where we had a corporate team out and they were volunteering, and someone who used to be on their team, used to work for their corporation, actually came through the line to get lunch. And, he was someone who had been downsized from the corporation and now was in a really tough situation. And those people were able to rally around him and, get the HR department involved and help him to find a new job. And so all of those opportunities for us to connect as real people in a real space, in a real way, as opposed from everything being virtual, is so valuable and so important, and something that in the age of COVID-19 we miss terribly. But we will get back there because, that community building and breaking down those barriers between people is something that I think matters so much in this world, especially right now.
Terry, you said a few things that really touch me and hopefully the listeners is there's not a lot of differences between us. We live in a world, sadly, where there's a lot of talk about division and polarization and basically causing a big divide in our country. And I think that's a huge disservice to all of us because we're pretty much all the same. I mean, everybody wants to, not everyone, some people, in my opinion, have the wrong view of the universe, and they talk about the differences instead of the commonality. And you talked about people being real and authentic, and which is really, I think, what it's all about is being real and being part of the world. Don't sit on the sidelines. And you're talking about so many wonderful different people of all walks of life, right? The churches, the synagogues, people in corporate America, people all over the place, just trying to make the world better. What are your thoughts about that? Why do we always focus on the bad and the really rotten stories instead of all the beautiful things you witness almost every day of your life, certainly when you go to work? Why do you think that is, Terry? Why do you think people always, lately, the news, everybody wants to talk about the bad, the horrible, instead of all these beautiful stories of people coming together?
I mean, I guess maybe it's human nature. I don't know. I mean, I think it's incredibly sad that is what we focus on. And I think that there are so many examples of how, that division is something that is not true and real. I mean, I guess maybe some of it also is that's what we're surrounded by all the time. To your point, you were saying, this is what everybody's talking about and everybody focuses on. And I think it's maybe easy to buy into that. And one of the things that we see every day is people having that aha moment of, I had this sense in my head of what people coming to a soup kitchen would be or would look like, or, these people are different than I am, that us and them thinking that there's this other group of people and they're somehow different than me. And watching that all it takes is getting to know someone who's different than you to break down all of those false belief systems. I think that there's a lot of talk in our country right now about, how do we break down these barriers between different groups? And I think we need to be having those conversations, and those are important conversations. but I also think it's not an entirely intellectual conversation. I think there needs to be a real relationship piece in there where people simply get to know each other on a personal level and realize that the things that make us different from one another are things we should be celebrating, and that most of our human experience is the same. We all want the same things. We all want to be safe. We all want to be loved. We all want to be happy. We all want to be successful. We all want to be surrounded by people who love us, and that's true for every single one of us, and that these things that we focus on as, what divides me from you are such small parts of our experience that honestly just fade away once you are in a real relationship with someone. And I think we all see it, we have the uncle who you argue with over politics at Thanksgiving, but at the heart of it, you still love that person and want them to be a part of your life. So those differences get smaller the bigger the relationship becomes. And that's a beautiful thing, to be able to facilitate and watch and grow every day.
Right. So Terry, you see firsthand really humanity. You see people helping each other of all walks of life, all colors, all backgrounds, the rich, the poor, everybody in between, multimillionaires and people, sadly, that don't have any resources at all and have major drug issues or problems in their life, personal major problems, but they're still together talking and trying to work things out to help each other. And that's, once again, I think, the beauty of Nourish, New Jersey. I urge everyone, to visit Terry's wonderful website and really their mission. So one of the things that I was thinking about, too, Terry, is your organization doesn't stop. It doesn't quit. It doesn't matter the weather, blizzards, hurricanes, floods. 365 days a year, you're feeding the hungry. And I love that commitment. I love that you guys are unstoppable. And that means so much to me as a member of the community. I'm sure to so many that your organization is there no matter what. What's the meaning behind that, Terry? I got myself all, juiced up a little bit. I did work out this morning. I do like to, try to keep it pretty strong. But the point is, I love that commitment to doing your thing every day. Where'd that mantra come from for Nourish, New Jersey?
So it's amazing that the number of people who are committed to the idea that we will never miss a serving day. So 36 years we have been in operation and have never missed opening our doors a single day. That's an incredible track record that is attributable to so many people. And it really comes from, once you have experienced the work that we do and you've seen it firsthand, you see how important it is, and that people are hungry every single day. Just because it's Christmas, or just because it's snowing outside, or the power is out, or it's Superstorm Sandy, people still need food, and that is kind of a universal thing that I think everyone can understand, that we all need to eat and we all need food. And it has become, because our guests are always at the center of everything that we do, for everybody who's part of our organization. Every decision we make, everything we do is really seen through the lens of, is this the best thing for the people who we serve? And if it's not, then it's not something that we will do. So that has kind of always been a part of our culture as an organization, and people, love the work so much and love the people that we serve every day, that it has become part of who they are. So if it's their day to volunteer and there's a blizzard, they are getting out of bed in the morning when the rest of us maybe are staying in bed, and they're shoveling their way out and they're making their way there, because, what we hear over and over from people is, it was not going to be on my day that it was the first time we didn't open our doors in 36 years. So people have walked in a blizzard because they couldn't get their car out. They've walked 2 miles in a blizzard to get to the organization to open the doors. And people, have actually, one of our staff members was walking down the middle of the road during one of the blizzards, and somebody else was walking down the middle of the road in the same direction, and they looked at each other and said, "Are you going to the soup kitchen?" And they realized that they were both walking to the same place to make sure that the doors opened. We've had people sleep in the church overnight to make sure that the doors could open in the morning, because there's this real commitment to, it's not just this idea. They're real people who walk through the door who need food and need help and need a warm space, and it won't be on my watch that those doors don't open.
So Terry, I mean, we're talking about really an unparalleled commitment. These are volunteers. They're not getting paid. They just want to help. They want to lend a hand up. You know, I did some quick math. We're talking over 13,000 straight days of being there to help others, lift others up. I mean, that's just an incredible thing. So, you know, Nourish New Jersey, though, I understand, is not just feeding the hungry, but you're helping the homeless. You're helping those who are impoverished. You're providing food, housing, getting them ready for work, medical services, educational services, in a warm, safe, caring environment without any charges, without any questions being asked. I mean, you got a broad mission, Terry Connolly. That's a big mission. So for the folks, I mean, so they understand more. You got me all worked up. I mean, thinking about the commitment of, you know, Nourish New Jersey. I hope others listening would step up and get involved, too. We need more of these kinds of folks walking in blizzards to help other strangers. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. You guys do so much. So why don't we touch a little bit about some of the other wonderful things besides obviously feeding the hungry? I mean, there's nothing more important than making sure people have some food. But you're doing so much more. Can you talk a little bit about those programs as well?
Sure. So we started as an organization that was really focused on the food services. And then probably by nature of being a social worker, when I started with the organization, and, you know, you start to develop those relationships with people, you realize that this is not a situation that people would ever choose to be in, where they have to be coming someplace every day to get the food that they need to keep themselves alive and healthy. So as you begin to have those conversations with people, you begin to see the things that are keeping people stuck in the situation that they're in. So, you know, if someone is homeless, there is an incredible lack of affordable housing in Morris County. You know, it's just a fact. If you're someone who's working and making minimum wage, even if you're working 2 jobs or 3 jobs, it is very, very, very difficult to afford housing. So the lack of affordable housing in Morris County is something that really keeps people kind of stuck in homelessness. And we decided that along with lots of other organizations that we work with, you know, that was something we needed to take on, because we cannot leave people literally living on the streets. You know, it is just not okay for that to be happening in our community. So we began our housing programs where we work with lots of other nonprofit organizations in the county, so that we can take the people that we see are the people who have kind of not been able to succeed with the traditional programs that are out there. You know, Morris County has lots of fabulous social services and lots of opportunities for people to access services. But the people who end up with us kind of longer term are the people that for whatever reason weren't able to connect successfully to those programs. They may need a little bit of extra help. They may have a severe mental illness that keeps them from being able to connect in the way, you know, other people might be able to. Or they may have a criminal background that bars them from a lot of programs. So there are people who just can't connect in the same way. So it's our mission to make sure that we have resources available for those people too. So we work with other organizations. We will help people to get started on the housing process. We will help them look for apartments. We'll help them secure the funding that they need, whether that's through Social Security or through the employment program, so that they can afford to have a place to live. And we'll start, sometimes you have to start with the person has no ID. You know, they don't have their birth certificate. They've been homeless for so long. You're not walking around with all of your documents in your pocket. So a lot of times it starts with having to get a birth certificate from wherever they were born, so that you can even start to build the documentation so that they have a driver's license or some type of ID so that they can even apply for a job. And then that coupled with they don't have a phone, so how do you apply for a job if nobody can call you back to tell you that you have an interview? So the housing program takes people all the way from that point all the way through permanent housing, and then sticks with them to make sure that they're able to maintain that housing.
Wonderful. And so for the listeners, once again, I always like to give you a chance to give shout-outs to your wonderful organization. If they want to reach out, people are listening to this. And you guys are really providing a safety net so no one falls to, unfortunately, these little holes in our system. And you just talked about the reality of folks are been homeless. They don't have their IDs anymore. They need a hand up. They don't know where to turn. Social services, for whatever reason, haven't been able to solve their problems. How do they reach out to Nourish New Jersey again?
So our website is nourish.NJ.org. And on the website are listed all the different ways that you can connect, whether you're looking for services or whether you're looking to volunteer or be a donor. And then all of our staff people are also listed on there. And there's a wealth of information on there about all the different ways you can connect for different reasons.
Wonderful. And, you know, one of the things that you guys do is you're providing support. You're providing the tools for these folks just to get a hand up. You know, if they're having some problems, and everybody in life goes through some stuff. And for all the listeners, this could happen to anyone. You know, we know people, you know, sometimes are too proud to say, I need this kind of help, but people really do. But you're giving them the tools. You're giving them a chance to lift themselves up out of poverty, become self-sufficient, get the housing, get the employment, because I certainly would understand it's a vicious cycle. If they're not eating, they have food insecurity, they don't have housing, they can't find a job, they might have some mental illness, whatever might be holding them back. And you guys, you know, step up and you help so much. One of the questions also, Terry, is how do you raise the money to run these wonderful programs? Because it does cost money. That's real, right? You need money. How do you do your fundraising?
So it does cost money, yes.
Yeah.
So we do not apply for any government funding. So we decided early on in the organization that we wanted to be a community-based organization where it was community caring for community. So we don't apply for any government funding. So we privately fundraise all of the money that we use for our programs. So that is the largest piece of our funding is actually individuals. So it's people from the community writing a check and sending it in. So it's anywhere, you know, we have people who send us $5 a month, and that is so appreciated. And then we have people who, you know, give six-figure gifts to the organization. But it's all of those people, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of people every year who are giving what they can. And, you know, there's no amount that's too small. Everything helps. So individuals writing checks to support the organization. We apply for lots of private foundation grants. And then corporations who support the organization through our Sponsor of the Day program or through the corporate foundations. And then we have two fundraisers a year. One is in the spring. It's called Share the Bounty, and it's a silent auction and cocktail buffet at the Madison Hotel. And then in October we have a hunger walk, which brings in over 1,000 people for a walkathon through the streets of Morristown to raise awareness about hunger and homelessness and poverty, and then also raise funds to support the organization. So it's very varied, lots of hands, lots of people, lots of generosity, and thousands of gifts over the course of the year.
So this is another thing that, you know, is a secret, and it shouldn't be, is there are so many incredible people who give, regular folks to, you know, the Fortune 100 companies. You know, we're talking about the big, there's a lot of very, very successful corporations in the great county of Morris County, and they're giving back. And I think that's wonderful. But most importantly, just regular folks just reaching into their pockets and lending a hand up and providing, you know, funds for all the wonderful work. I want to touch again, though, about volunteerism, you know, Terry, because you've seen firsthand folks just do the right thing and lift up. I love saying lift up. I don't know. I've been thinking over and over, what's my show about? It's about lifting up, making people feel better about themselves, and certainly lifting the world, because I think there's so much of that need right now. is what do you think about all these volunteers and folks? You see, you've witnessed, Terry, it's interesting. I've been coaching Special Olympics for over 20 years. There's some wonderful coaches, Sweet Lou Ferraro, Craig Lombardi, Tom Abezia, Bart Goldberg. I mean, wonderful people, countless people I've come in contact with. But every year you come in contact with 3,000 folks of all walks of life. Tell us a little bit more about the volunteerism and what you think is that common denominator among those wonderful, beautiful people.
So I think the common denominator is that generosity of spirit. It's a sense that there are needs out there in the world and a sense that there is something I can do to help. And, it's amazing. One of my favorite things when our dining room is open and operating in a normal fashion outside of the pandemic is to walk through the dining room and you see, on any given day we have anywhere from 10 to 50 volunteers who are helping with the organization. And you walk through and, nobody is there kind of like, in a solemn way. Everybody has smiles on their faces and everybody is bright and engaged, and they're just looking to be that beacon. They're looking to be that person who can make a difference, and they're looking to connect with other people like them. And it just amazes me. I mean, to be a volunteer for an organization for 25 years, that is an incredible commitment to anything, much less something, like I said before, you're not even getting paid for. And to see the difference that they make in the community, that we couldn't do the work that we do. We absolutely could not have our doors open 365 days a year, feed everybody who comes, and offer this breadth of services if it wasn't for all of these people who every day say, I will be there and I will work as hard as I possibly can to make sure that we get done what we need to get done. It would cost us $1 million a year to have to pay all of those people to do this incredible work. And, I think everybody gets something out of it, and you feel really good when you leave at the end of the day. And if people have never volunteered or never had that experience, it's life-changing. It's something that will make you feel good. It's something that will last in your heart for a long time. You will feel good about it for a long time, and you will want to come back and keep doing it. So it helps the community, but it also has a lot of personal value, too.
No question about it. I've left out my great friend Mike Donowick, who's been coaching Special Olympics for so many years. And I'm involved in the 200 Club in Morris County. Talk about a bunch of folks, our beacon of lights, giving their love and respect and support to all of the first responders. I mean, nowadays especially. Giving the love and support to the law enforcement, who I think are way too much maligned. There's so many wonderful, incredible public servants in that field, and God bless them for everything they do. Before we end this show today, Terry, I didn't talk much about COVID-19, to be honest. We did many shows about it, but I know the real world, right, is COVID-19 is affecting Nourish, New Jersey, in a really, unfortunately, a pretty big way. COVID-19, I know we're getting through it, but I know it's taking a toll, obviously, in how you interact with your guests. What are the current needs of your organization in the COVID-19 world? What can we do? What's happening now that we can all be aware and also lift up and help you guys? You got great people out.
So since March, when the restrictions went into place, so obviously there is still no indoor dining that is permitted in New Jersey, and we honestly feel, so the people that we serve are so medically vulnerable that, the idea of congregate meals for people who are that medically vulnerable seems like it would put them at greater risk. So we have really shifted our model since March to be more delivery-based. So people can come and pick up takeaway meals, and then we also have shifted to delivering food to people who are housed, people in senior housing or people who, people who we have moved into housing, and then people who are being sheltered in motels and places like that. So things we definitely need right now are non-perishable foods, so, donations of canned goods and dry goods, and again, these are all listed on our website. If you have home gardens, and you have extra produce, we are restarting all of our free farmers markets. So being able to offer that fresh, healthy food to people who are struggling to make ends meet. So no amount is too small. So, anything you have from your garden that you can share. We are putting together quarantine kits. We work with Morristown Medical Center, and anyone who is experiencing homelessness who tests positive for COVID-19 but doesn't need to be hospitalized based upon their symptoms, they call nourish.NJ, and we work with them on a discharge plan to give them a safe place to quarantine. So those quarantine kits are everything that person will need. So it's everything from, cans of soup and crackers to, cough drops and a thermometer so they can, check their temperature, and Advil and, medications like that. So quarantine kits are definitely a need right now. And then typically we would be working with lots of low-income families through a low-income summer camp. But the day camp was canceled because of COVID-19. So we're working on putting together home camp kits for those families so that they have activities, educational activities and community-based activities. So camp kits are also something that are needed. And again, it's all listed on our website. And then you can also always give us a call or shoot us an email, and we're happy to talk about whatever it is that we most need at any given moment. And then, of course, financial donations help because it allows us to purchase things at a lower cost, and also gives us the flexibility. We just got 100 quarantine kits, so we don't need those right now, but turns out we need more PPE for our staff, so we can purchase that. So, financial gifts are, of course, flexible and allow us to purchase what we need in that moment.
Well, Terry, I just want to say in concluding our really important discussion this morning is people like you are what it's all about. You're involved for over 23 years building a community every day, being a beacon of light. All your incredible volunteers, dedicated, and you touched on no matter what the weather is, 365 days a year, these folks that need a hand up and just being lifted, places like you are available, and that means the world to me and hopefully to our listeners that Nourish New Jersey and Terry Connolly every day are putting it out there to lend a hand up. So God bless you and your incredible mission. Once again, it's been a real honor to have you on today, Terry. Each week, everyone tuning in, we do our best to bring people on like the Terry Connollys of the world. We have Pastor Gidron. I invite you to go to our website, the ToddLeonardShow.com website. We've had so many incredible guests over 9 months now. And this is an incredible honor for me because everybody that's coming on are people like Terry Connolly, making the world better, lifting us all up, lifting the world up. What's more important than to be someone who's given back, not just about themselves? So we just lost a great leader, John Lewis, and a remarkable person who stood for justice, equality, and was such a champion of the people. And I think we all owe people like John Lewis. That's what we all should strive to be. So remember, everyone, we're in this together. Be kind to each other. Lift each other up. If you know people really making the world better, have them reach out to us. The ToddLeonardShow.com. Give me a call, 973-920-7900, or send me an email. Say, Todd, listen, I know someone, or I think maybe I could come on your show. tleonard@lawleonard.com. Have a blessed rest of this incredible weather today, and I hope you tune in next week. Take care of each other.